Here we are, everybody. Welcome back. Now I'm going to take you through, this is the outline process. This is what we have coming up. This is going to be Kool-Aid Pineapples. Why did I choose this? I don't know. I don't really remember. But I know I've seen them going viral on TikTok. So here we go. We're going to start the outline process. This is a picture that I made up myself. So we're going to kind of see where this goes, and hopefully you'll like it and be delighted with it. Actually, this is my first voiceover, so definitely nervous about that, but here we go. Taking through, this is the line art process. This is actually part one of a two-part series that I'm putting out. And let's begin. So first we're going to start with the outline process. We're going to start with the outline layer. I'm going to outline the hand. We're just going to go around. We're using the pen tool. I chose yellow because it's a contrast color. Contrast with the black and white image that I'm tracing here. Kind of go around the hands, up, down, around the fingers. This one here is tracing out the pineapple. Just going around tracing it. And it's just creating anchor points for the pineapple. I don't know, it's pretty straightforward. Hopefully you can get the idea of what's happening here. Just the pineapple itself. Here we are outlining the Kool-Aid packet. Now this Kool-Aid packet, I think I chose lemon, I believe. I don't know why I chose that. I think I saw that somewhere. Yeah, so I'm just doing lemon. Now we're doing the actual jar itself. Outlining the jar. It's going around the full perimeter. Just creating, and this is just creating the outline layer. So this is going to be all of the background colors for everything that's going to be on top of this. And that's the purpose of this. And that's why we're doing this. And this will bring it all to life. In the end, you know, you'll get the gist of the process. And sometimes, believe it or not, I don't really have. And sometimes you get nervous because you don't know exactly what's going on. Here I'm just adjusting the actual anchor points so I can make it look like something when it's all said and done. And yes, it's very, very, very important to do this because it's going to bring the whole thing together in the end. And this is the main jar here. This is the one in the middle. I think this is the red Kool-Aid. Outlining it. Just going around. Just the jar, the side of the jar. Just adjusting it, making sure it, because even though there's a hand holding the jar, we're still going to have to make it look like something, you know, even though it's on the inside of the hand. And here, outlining the hand, going around the fingers, going here, going up the knuckles around the fingers itself. And I chose the fingers on this, somebody holding it, I should say, is because I think it'll be a lot more realistic. And, you know, I thought about putting just a plain jar in there, and I don't know, it just didn't seem like a right thing to do. It seemed like something that was a little more grounded, but having somebody hold the jar as opposed to having it just floating in the air. This is the other jar. This is the third jar I chose, and these just symbolize the process. Making the Kool-Aid pineapples. And this one will be, I think, purple, I think, is what I'm going to go for this. You know, you can let me know in the comments if, you know, go something different. But yeah, this is just the outline itself. Taking it through. Outlining the jar. Now we're going to be outlining the actual package of Kool-Aid. And this is very, very simple, but it's also very detailed. And I think this is a good one to start with. If you have the opportunity to, you could just create something like this. Just grab a couple pictures and kind of paste them together, or cut them out and put them in one, and just create outlines. This will give you a great start for something. Sometimes I like doing food because it takes a lot of detail. And here I'm just going through, adding details to the inside of the jar. And one of the key elements of realistic vector illustrations is actually the detail. Because with the details, that's what creates the full photorealism in the end. It's important, but it's also part of the background. It brings it all together in the end. And that's what's really important about this. So that's why a lot of times you'll see I might fix it. Sometimes I'm taking my time, or I'm a little tedious with it sometimes, and sometimes you can zoom through it, kind of get an idea of what's going on here. And this is very just straightforward. It's going around this one here, that one there, making these smaller for the detail for the jar. This is actually where the lid screws on to the jar. And these have to be smaller just for the idea and just for the sake of the realistic and the realism of the jar itself. Where the lid screws on the jar. Just going through. Yeah, usually the brush I use for this is the I don't know how to call it, but it's the brush. It's one of my brushes that I use a lot. It's big in the middle and it's smaller on either end, so it kind of gives you like a really sharp line. Something that I really like, something I really enjoy. It brings things together. If you don't want to be bold or broad all the time, you really want to go and give it that feeling of realism. That's something I thoroughly enjoy. And here are the highlights. We're moving on to the highs layer. And the highs layer is just everything that's going to be shining on the jar, everything where the light would hit first. And this is on top of the pineapples themselves, creating all of the details for the pineapples themselves. Yeah, this is the second layer we worked on. We finished up the outline layer, and now we're working on the highs layer, creating all the highs for the highs layer. Doing the top of the lid, top of the jar here. Going around, making sure the details are there for all the grooves in the top of the jar. And this is going to be something that you're going to see in the end. We'll really bring it together. We'll really give it a very realistic feel. And some of these will be smaller, some of these will be bigger. We don't want them all the same. That's not good. Just outlining the pineapples now, putting the highlights on the pineapples themselves. And yeah, everything here, some of it's smaller, some of it's bigger. And it's just to give an idea of exactly how to create photorealism on a vector illustration. And this is just using the brush tool itself. And usually, you can really pick any brush. It depends on what you're going for a project like this. I think I use primarily 2 or 3 brushes. I don't really use that many sometimes, because I usually stick to the basics and I let the colors and I let the actual illustration itself tell the story. Yeah, like it if you will, if you like what's going on so far. And yeah, we're getting there. We're outlining all the highlights. And this is very important. And I used to think that this wasn't important before. Like some of the stuff and yeah, can you skip this sometimes if you want a very flat illustration? You don't want realistic, if you just want it to be almost monochrome or two-tone. You don't have to do the highlights. But the highlights are very important for photorealism, vector illustration. And that's what I'm going for here. When I started this project, it was just to, I don't know, I just got inspired, and I kept seeing people eat those Kool-Aid pineapples. And I said, you know what? Wouldn't that be cool to create something like that? Just kind of bring it to life. And this is on top of the pineapple here. Just creating the highlights for the pineapple itself, so that when it come back to add color, this is going to make it not flat. This is going to add texture to the actual pineapple. giving the fingers, the highlights, fingers, and the pineapple itself, the highlights. Yeah, that's what's going on here. This is what I'm doing. Yeah, I usually don't switch brushes. I usually stay with one or two brushes sometimes. It's very rarely I go into a third brush. I just stick with the main brushes themselves. These are brushes I've had for a while. These aren't something I actually went out and got. It's just something I had, and I just like the brushes themselves. They work well. They're easy to use. I can create almost what I want to create with these brushes. Very simple. Just creating highlights here on the jar. And this is all the places where the light would just hit it. And you can kind of see what's going on when you see the highlights of the jar. And when I zoom in like this, I can really get all into the details. And is this really necessary? I would have to say yes. It is necessary. Because when you see the finished product, or sometimes when I'm visualizing the actual finished product, I can really see and get an understanding of why it's so important. And highlighting the fingers here, because it's going to bring it all to life. You know, it's not going to be laying there flat on the screen. It's going to jump out at you and really give it shape and dimension. And that's something I'm looking for, is depth of field, looking for the lows, the highs, the mids. And that's what's really important here. Really, that's what I'm going for, is to make it jump off the screen, not just the flat illustration itself. Here, just doing the highlights of the actual jar itself. Little tidbits here and there, and just adding what I think will work. That's definitely for the finished product, and I just want as many highlights as I can get that make sense to this project, because it's only natural to get something so good until you realize, like, okay, in the end, this is going to work out. And you'll see in the end, this is something that will definitely be one of those matter of fact things to do. You know, you really want to get a sense for, okay, this is realistic. This is vector illustration. You want to get something that's, you know, a little more, it's a little cartoonish in a way. And that's part of it, because it's Kool-Aid. And that's kind of also the part of this as well. You know, and outlining the Kool-Aid letters. Now, this one here, I just take the liberty of just kind of almost cartoonish approach to this. I don't take this too seriously. I mean, as long as I get that it's Kool-Aid, as long as you understand what it is, that's as far as it goes. You know, I don't want every detail. I don't need every detail on a pack of Kool-Aid. I mean, once it says Kool-Aid, you kind of get where I'm going with it anyway. And that makes a little more sense. There's Kool-Aid, and, you know, and how serious can you be? I mean, they're Kool-Aid pineapples. I mean, it's kind of a fun project to do. And just adding a few highlights, things that I would think look good in the end. And yes, you do want to add these, because you don't want something that's going to be flat. You want it all the time. Here, just checking the layers, checking what we've done so far, and seeing what we have to do. Outline is on, the highlights are on. And yeah, and then we'll be adding a little more here. Turn off the highs, turn off the outline, and we are working on the lows layer. And the lows are all these dark spots here that you see. All the shadow effects, all of the parts of it that will lay under the highlights. So you'll have the highlights there, but then the lows will give it a little more depth of field. So you're looking, so this part will be the background that you see. This will be in the back that you see. We'll make the highlights pop off the screen, make the highlights even more pronounced. And here I'm just outlining the Kool-Aid packet. Changing brush from here to there, and that's what I'm just using, just different brushes and different sizes of brushes. You're not trying to get all the detail, kind of know what it is from the other Kool-Aid packet that's on this illustration, but this will be the one mixing the Kool-Aid into pineapples themselves. Yeah, so just adding detail. Just, and you know what? I thought about getting really, really detailed with this, and then I said, it's not even necessary. As long as you get where I'm going with it and the outcome, that's all that really, really matters. So it was kind of playing around, kind of messing around with this and making it smaller, playing with the sizes of things. Going back to the highs layer, checking the lows layer, making sure that things aren't laying directly on top of one another. And that's another thing about these vector illustrations. You don't want to have have something land right. Have a say something on the lows layer laying right under on the highs layer, because you won't be able to see it. And this is just outlining the dark part of the Kool-Aid that's mixed into the pineapples here. Yeah, I'm just going through outlining it. And this is actually the pencil tool. It's very loose. Just outlining it, just running through the pencil tool, creating the lows of where it's going to be, how the Kool-Aid is going to be mixed into these pineapples. I don't know. If I've never tried these, you can let me know if you've tried them. I've never tried them. I mean, I don't know, they look very sweet. That's one thing I will say. I think you do have to add sugar. I don't think it's just pineapples and Kool-Aid. I think it's sugar as well. I think that's what I saw last time I looked. Yeah, but I think it's all kind of stuff out there. But hey, I think it's fun. I think it's funny. I think it's cool all at the same time. And it's funny because it's really not necessary to have. I mean, who wakes up needing Kool-Aid pineapples? I mean, it's like, But, it's the summer or the end. And that will kind of justify the illustration here. And that's something I wanted to do, something that was fun. Something that was a little unnecessary, but a little cool. And at the same time, it's very colorful and have a little fun with it. And here, just putting the lows on the jar. This is the lows for the fingers, all the dark spots of the fingers where the light really doesn't shine that much. And it's going to bring depth to the actual vector illustration in the end. Now, a drawing like this is something I would do for, let's say, for shirts, t-shirts. If necessary, I would do something like this for maybe a kid's poster or an outdoor event, for something that people are promoting, maybe a community event, just to kind of draw the eye for something different. Because a lot of times people are looking for something different when they request something like this. This one I'm doing is actually just for fun. But I think it's important to get as much practice as you can. Because yes, I actually have some shirts finished. They're going through the testing phase. And I don't want to actually put them on display or for sale just yet until I make sure everything is where it needs to be. So it's testing out the prints, testing out the colors, testing out the process that I'm going to put on the t-shirts or the sweatshirts themselves. So that'll be something that'll be coming up. Stay tuned for that. T-shirts, sweatshirts with some of these illustrations on there. I'm not sure exactly which ones I'm going to do, but I'm going to get some feedback and really go in there and test to see which one is which. And this is just the top of the jar, creating the dark parts for the top of the jar itself, where the lid screws on. And this right here is important because it's actually creating the roundness for the jar itself, where the lid will screw on. And I think and this is the other part, and go straighten that out. This is for the side of the jar. This is the part that's not going to really see any light. And when I do this, I'm not really trying to get a light source. There's multiple light sources for these. So the dark parts on this part of the jar, that part to the jar. And this one is actually in a fold a little bit, so you can see inside of the jar itself. And I thought that was kind of funny or important to show. And I thought it was kind of cool to see inside of a jar. I mean, how many times do you see somebody drawing the inside of a jar? This is the low lights of the hand, where the creases in the hand, the creases in the fingers. for the knuckles themselves. Yeah, that's what this is going on, and this is for where the Kool-Aid mixed into the jar itself, where it hasn't been 100% mixed into the pineapples. And it's going over here, making sure got everything checked out for the Lowe's layer, adding little details here and there because I want this to be as realistic as possible. That's the idea and the whole motive behind this. It's going to be a little fun, a little playful, a little colorful, but also a realistic vector illustration. This is just kind of putting more details in the hand. Yeah, and this is just more of the Kool-Aid that really didn't mix in with the pineapples themselves. So it's getting some depth field, and I think in the end you'll see kind of where it's going. This is more adding the lows to the fingers themselves, giving them a little more dimension. And that's what's important about fingers, or important about something that's realistic. Just adding as much depth of field or as realism as you can with fingers and shapes and colors, and just kind of making it realistic, you know, to not always am I doing something that's realistic, but this one in particular, that's what I tried. That's what I wanted to go for. I wanted you to get it. As soon as you saw it, I wanted you to get it. I didn't want this to be a maybe or if, or, you know, what is that exactly? And just to go for it, just to go take it from here so you can see exactly what it is as soon as you see it. And this is just adding more depth to the knuckles and the bends, the knuckles of the fingers there. And this is for the top of the pineapple, because actually, believe it or not, the pineapple is it's not a smooth shape. It's kind of when you cut it on the outside, it's kind of, it's got a texture to it. You know, I guess that's the best way to put it. And some of the texture is raised, some of it is lowered. And the part I'm adding right here is the lowered part. So this will be under the highlights. And if you just put the highlights on top of just the plain shape itself, checking the layers again, right here, that's all I'm doing is checking the layers, seeing what I've done so far. I've done the outline, I've done the lows, and I've done the highs. So just checking the layers, seeing what it looks like. If you can see it taking shape, hopefully, that's the goal. That's why I check the layers like that often. And sometimes I go back and I add things. And I go back and I check the layers, and just to make sure that it's on the right, like right here, you know, the jar itself is not as realistic as possible. You know, no jar is going to be straight down, especially when it's pointed. It's tilted a little forward. So I'm just kind of creating that angle, if you will, or that perspective going in here for the Kool-Aid itself, and kind of adding a little stuff here and there, because this will really help in the end. The more you can add, you can kind of see it taking shape, and that's the goal. And here I'm working on the mids layer, and now this is going to be everything in between the lows layer and the highs layer. Now this is going to tie those two layers together. This is going to tie in. This is going to give it a break from the background layer. This is going to give it, it's not necessarily a lows layer because it's not going to be that deep or dark, but this is going to be the main color layer. Your mids are, because the lows are just the lows of that one color, and the highs are just going to be the highs of that one color, and the mids are going to be that actual color. So whatever color that you're looking for, that's when you would have a mids layer. That's what the mids layer brings. That's what it provides. So you're going to add this anywhere you want to see color, anywhere where you think color will be relevant. So this is where you bring the colors together on the mids layer, and just going through, see where the Kool-Aid will mix inside the jar, see where the pineapples are. And like I said, this is going to be the main color layer. So outlining the pineapples here at the tops of them. And these are the pineapples that are sitting in the actual Kool-Aid themselves. It's outlining those, going around. Yeah, just kind of outline them. And that's kind of the premise here, is the idea of you're going around, and these are the chunks, so to speak, that you want to add the mids to. because this is where the main colors are going to be. Here, outlining the jar, because the jar is going to have color too, even though it's a clear jar. It's still going to have a color because it has to represent the color of whatever jar you're mixing it in. And this is going to be the outside of the jar. This is going to be the main color of the jar itself. Whatever that's going to be in the end. I think I went with red. I think I'm going to go with red with this one. I'm not sure, but we'll see. You know, we're in the early stages here, but we're almost done with these outline. These are the mids for the Kool-Aid jar, pineapples. This is the mids layer, and just everywhere we're going to be main color. It's always good to add color to anywhere that you want the main colors to be, and this is really going to tie in the lowlights and the highlights of these vector illustration, and the outline is just to kind of bring it in the end. It's going to be the backgrounds. So it's just going to complement everything that's going on here. I know. You know what's funny? I look at this and it looks like you got 3 fingers, but the actual what's happening is the pinky is under the jar, holding it from slipping down. Because I don't know if you know, but you know, hey, you put liquid inside of a jar, a glass jar, on that, or even a plastic jar, it gets really slippery. So the pinky is under the jar, but it looks like you only it only has 4 fingers, but there's really 5. Because when I look at it, I was like, it looks like, you know, but I understand, and I have to, you know, explain. But I also said, you know, it's a vector illustration. It's not, you know, an anatomy class, so it's also tongue in cheek at the same time. So I don't take it that serious. Sometimes I have to just let go and remember these are just illustrations, and this is illustrating. This is the jar here, outlining the mids for that. This is going to be the main color of that jar itself, of where the Kool-Aid mixes in. And this is, you see this right here, this is, I'm outlining the part of the jar where the Kool-Aid is not mixed in. So that'll be the main part. I'm outlining where the Kool-Aid would be, and then the background will be where the pineapples will be. And the reason I know this is because when I'm looking at it, I can see the different shades of color, and this is just doing the background of the Kool-Aid label itself, and going through just adding details for the fingers. Just another dimension for the fingers. And outlining the knuckles, outlining, and just making sure that everything is in order. I mean, you can always come back and double check this and triple check it, and, you know, add stuff in the end, which is fine. But a lot of times you can kind of see where things are going, and you just kind of add it as you will. Now, do I ever take things away? Sometimes. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it's not in the right hue or the right color scheme. But I also have to tell myself these are vector illustrations. This is not something that's that imperative. And sometimes, and a lot of times in art, nobody knows when you mess up. The only time they know you messed up is when you tell them. So, you know, just have a little freedom with it. You know, it's not, don't take it that serious. Don't take yourself that serious. Don't take art that serious. Have a little fun with it, because, listen, it's a lot of mess ups. Even in this one, some of these line arts are not as precise as I would like them. Because I'm doing this rather quickly, just to kind of get the point across, and it's something I wanted to do for a while. But I just checking that layers once again, seeing what I have to do and seeing what else am I missing. So now I'm going back through, just kind of going through and adding for the others layer. And what is the other? The other is primarily, in this case, it's the pineapples themselves that are laying in the jar. You know, the mids are the main color for the actual Kool-Aid, and the mids layer is actually the pineapples that are in the jar. And then the background would primarily be the color of the jar. So you get the color of the the color of the Kool-Aid, you get the color of the pineapples, and then you get the color of the jars themselves. And the highlights and lowlights just bring those together. The highlights are where the light hits it. The lowlights are the part that are more in the shadows. Yeah, just as adding some details here and something that'll bring it together. Something that'll make a little more sense when it comes to adding color. Now, when I started this, I really didn't intend on doing all of this and adding all these in. And like me adding this right now, this wasn't really my intention to go this far with it. I might be going a little too far sometimes with some of this stuff, but I think the colors help it bring it out from where it is and where it needs to be. And these are just things I'm just adding just for detail, just because I want it to be realistic. And that's the goal of this, is to get it to a realistic point of view. And as soon as I can get it to a realistic point of view with the line art, then I can say, okay, it's done. And that's coming up. It's a little more. I'm pretty satisfied for where it's at right now. And I can kind of see it. Hopefully you can kind of see it coming together. Oh, this is the part I love. How about it? This is the part where the Kool-Aid is actually being added into the jar itself. So this is going to give it a very realistic, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to explain in an illustrative way what's going on here. The Kool-Aid's being poured into this jar here. So that gives it that perspective. And then the one next to it is the actual Kool-Aid pineapples being eaten and consumed in this finishing stages. And that's why I come back over here and I'll add a little, see what's going on, add a little more detail. See the nails. See, the nails are something I always wait till the end to do because they sit on top of the finger and they're a little less serious than the rest of the hand. So that's what these are. They're just sitting on top of the actual line or the outline of the illustration themselves. Yeah, just checking the layers, just seeing what's necessary, what's needed, what am I missing, and what could I add? Before I consider this part one of the line art done. I split it up in two parts, I think, because I don't know. I don't think nobody wants to hear somebody talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours straight. A lot of these are straightforward illustrations. They aren't some of them can be very intricate. These are just outlining, just going through outlining the skin, the hand, the parts of the finger that'll make it a little more realistic on the thumb there. And then this one is another illustration, but this was done in another color. I'm going to put another color on this. That's what the idea is. And this is the part of the Kool-Aid that's the powder going into the actual jar itself. And that's what all of these lines here represent. All of those marks represent. And I just wanted to show two different colors. Well, actually three different colors, because there's going to be one in the middle was being consumed. That's going to be a whole different color than this one here and the other one. I'm just going through, seeing the inside of the powder, the jar. I'm just adding things in that I see necessary or that I see fit. Yeah, and when you're doing these, there's really no right or wrong until you see the end product. And once you see the end product, you go, okay, I would have done that differently. I would have done this differently, and it's just a lot of practice is how you get to this point. And there you go. This is the line art for the Kool-Aid pineapples. See you in part 2, the coloring process. Hope you enjoyed this one. Till next time.